So I'm going to say Christian Tiege.
That'll work.
That
Absolutely.
worked?
Or just
Was that
Christian.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more or less.
Yeah.
Teague.
Yeah. The reason well, you see my name, right? So my name is kind of like this big giant monstrosity of a last name. So I always try to get the other last names right at least once, because you know. But when I was a kid, I still remember this. I'm gonna name him out on here. A guy by the name of Rob McLean would try to announce my name like he was 12. He's like Josh Pentella. Fuck it, Josh Alphabet.
I mean, names are important things, right? I mean, we live up to our names, don't we?
Absolutely. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, let's hope I get it mostly right, right? So I mean, if I didn't, oops, right? So, but how you doing today, man?
You know what? Because I'm on your show, like, I'm having a great day.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing. I love just joshing. Like, it's just, but it's more than just. I mean, you're like a superhero.
Sometimes.
And yeah. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Like I'm always, it's weird because I'm always shocked. Like I've never had a problem getting interviews for this show, like ever. Like the only reason I'm doing like a weekly schedule right now is because I'm going to be moving in probably in a week or so. Like it's gonna be quick because again with all the mandating coming out, you gotta kind of make a choice of where you're gonna be for the next little while, because I think it's going to be kind of crazy for a bit. But in my case specifically, I'm looking at the fact that it's like, well, at this point, honestly, what this is coming down is where can I be the most good, and where do I kind of want to be in the time that's about to come. And for me, that's going to be, I'm going to be heading back to Calgary for at least a bit, doing some stuff what I can to help people out, and you know. So I've been going week by week because I'm not quite sure exactly when I'm jumping. I just know it's going to be sooner than later, and it's going to be quick, and then bang, I'll be where I need to be. And yeah, it's going to be kind of a fun and little crazy time.
I mean, that's the beauty of, having, I mean, yes, the world is a different place, and all of us have sort of been reduced to these little rectangles. We have to make the most of our rectangles. But for me, I mean, there's two ways to look at tragedy and trauma and crisis. I mean, you can either let it kill you, or you can transform that trauma. And I love what you said. I mean, it's time to give a pause to our normal routine in life and figure out, like, where we want to spend the rest of it.
So I had a big thought about earlier this week about what I think this is actually about. I'm this is like my crazy big thought, because it occurred to me. Okay, if you really sit there and think about it, most of the system that we've lived up to this point is, I think, honestly about to go extinct. I mean, let's think about this for a second. You and I are having a conversation. You're like, where about, like you don't want to give me like a specific.
I'm in New Orleans, man.
Yeah, you're in New Orleans, Louisiana, right? I'm in Windsor, Ontario. If you really sit there and think about it, the borders for communication are zero. So a community can literally be anything. So if that's the case, what's the point of a city? We have cryptocurrency. We have all these different ways to trade. So what's the point of a banking system? Now, for all the downsides of social media, one of the big upsides is you don't need a mainstream media anymore, because you can find information anywhere. You can search it, look for it, kind of come to your own conclusions. So you don't need it. So media, government, big. And as for government, a government can just be, again, in a community, can be just a group of small-minded people, like-minded people making a decision. So I think one of the big things what's happening is the world is now going through this change. And I think what's going on right now is this is the end of the world as we know it. And I think the real question what's going on is, where do we want to become going forward? And that's the real, I think, quote unquote, the real battle right now is we have to make a decision about who are we going to be going forward. And we can be anything we want to be. And I think one of the things about this time that I think a lot of us take for granted is a lot of us feel powerless. But the truth is, it's really up to us what we choose to do here. Good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, it's all up to us. And we have some choices to make. But again, in
Mm,
terms of tools, in terms of again, we're talking right now. So that means again, 20 years ago that would have been unheard of. Even 10 years ago that would have been relatively unheard of. But
mm.
this is a normal that I
Well,
think a lot of right?
yeah, I
So
mean, we need a tech boost, don't we? I mean, because while this is great, Josh, and I love seeing you in two dimensions, like you're exactly right. Let's get that tech boost so that we can like meet virtually,
yeah.
VR, augmented reality. So I do think one of the good things about what you're describing is that it'll force tech companies to yes, there's been a kind of a diaspora, a decentralization of the city, but we need to find better ways to form new
Mhm.
cities, digital communities. And I think we're on the bleeding edge of that, which is so
Yeah.
incredibly exciting, you know?
Well, like I said, you're talking about opportunity, like looking at things like a bunch of different ways. This as much as it's chaos, it's also an opportunity.
Mm,
It's just recognizing it for what it actually is, not the good, the bad, or the good, not and deciding where we go from here. You know, we're going to make decisions what we cooperate with. We're going to make decisions what we don't cooperate with. I mean, we're going to have to just in general make decisions of who we want to be going forward
mm,
and understand what's going on and what we're actually struggling against. That's just my opinion, but that's kind of where we're at. And
mm,
I don't think people have fully realized this yet, but
mm,
they will in I think in the years to come. It's like we can become anything we like and be anything we want to be. And it sounds like really science fiction, but honestly, it's reality, right?
mm,
That's where we could go, and that's who we can become.
mm. Yeah, we create the future. We don't just wait for it. You know, one of the
Mhm,
things I love, and really along the lines of what you're talking about, Josh, like we're going to the moon. This is Ray Bradbury on steroids. I mean,
mhm,
we're talking about creating engines to take us to Mars. Like we
mhm,
get to do this again. We get to like repopulate a planet with its own laws and its own rules. I mean, when I wake up in the morning and I think about, you know, what's our universe going to look like? What's our galaxy going to look like in 20 years?
mhm,
And a lot of it will be the same, but there's something within the human spirit, I think, that has to break out of the gravity that we're confined to. You know,
mhm,
that's one of the reasons I started, you know, the Superheroes Unleashed group on Facebook, and you know, we love having you as a part of that because like you were born to fly and soar, and there's something you know, one of the reasons everyone's watching superhero movies these days, it's really keeping Hollywood afloat, to be quite honest. You know, all
mhm,
these Marvel movies and DC movies is because I think we love, you know, we want to figure out how to fly.
mhm,
And I think every once in a while you just need somebody to come along and kind of help docent that, help guide you into that. You know, like Doctor Strange, you know, you need an ancient one to open your mind. And so that's kind of the role that I've stepped into as this world has fallen apart. It's about making new worlds.
mhm. Well, that's it. Like we are at a moment of precipice. Going back to normal, I don't think exists. I think instead it's like, what do we want to create? And
Mm,
that's the real question. Like that's the honest possibility. I mean, it's not going
mm,
to look very pleasant for the next little while because it's just not. But if we're honest about it, like we have the ability, like I said, to go and become anything. It's
mm,
just how do we want to be led? And as far as superheroes go, it's funny because I'm actually tired of the Marvel universe. Like after Avengers Endgame, I just made the decisions like I'm gonna stay away from the MCU for a while just because I don't want to put that kind of investment into that like Avengers, that whole Thanos arc, that's 20 movies,
mm,
huge feat. That's an impressive feat on so many levels.
mm,
But I'm like, you know what? I don't need that. I don't need to do a story that complex anymore. give me Ant-Man. Ant-Man's is a fun little heist movie, nothing big, nothing over the top,
Mm,
just a good old-fashioned kinda, like, simpler story. That's kinda
mm,
what I want right now in my superhero movies. I don't need this
mm,
elaborate, like, multi-dimensional war with about Infinity Stones anymore. I just give me a good old-fashioned heist movie. Give me a good
mm,
old-fashioned or like, kinda like the Guardians of the Galaxy, like a Star Wars light
mm.
or a what's the term here for Doctor Strange is kind of neat, or Doctor Strange could be Neo of the Matrix. Like seriously, they're almost like the same kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do a lot of screenwriting, kind of in my spare time, and you know, you to keep Hollywood afloat right now, with all of the streaming platforms. I think there's like 12 of them now. It's almost like every car dealership has a streaming platform now. Everybody
Absolutely.
wants, and really with Reels on Instagram, everybody's becoming a cinematographer,
Hmm.
and working in post production. I mean, that's what most people spend their time doing now. And so it's been a real game changer, hasn't it? I mean, um,
Well, the definition of a Renaissance person, right? Is someone that
mm,
has multiple skill up. Almost all of us today, if you really sit there and think about our skill sets, we're all engineers on some level. I'm a
mm,
sound guy primarily. I mean, but I can do other things, but I'm a sound guy with some video experience. And that's what I'm going to be. I got a gig, my first long-term freelancing gig, and I signed the contract for it on Friday. And it's like, it's going to be doing what I'm doing here, hosting and doing video editing.
man, that is exciting. Are you
Yeah.
like pumped about it? I would be.
Oh no, it's fun. I've been working towards this. I'm at, like, my goal has always been to be sovereign, not to work for anybody anymore because I don't have the mindset to work for people anymore. It's
Mm,
for me, I'm at that point in my life where I can work for, like, again, hosting a show for a company. I can totally do that, but it's a specific block of my time going to one particular thing, and then
mm,
the rest of my time is just doing whatever I want to do because I'm at that point in my life where I don't want. I again, old way of thinking. You work until you retire.
mm,
That's not a reality anymore for most of us. The reality for most of us is we're gonna probably be working in our own little nooks and crannies of the universe for the foreseeable future.
mm.
So what does that look like for you? What do you want that to be?
Yeah, you use the word Renaissance. So I have a PhD in Victorian studies, so I just like love the past. I adore like we have to go back to the future, because the past has something to teach the present about how to move into the future.
Mhm,
And I look at the Black Death, for instance, in the Middle Ages, and you're right. I mean, the model that kind of America adopted post World War II is very much medieval in the sense that you have serfs who
mhm,
are working for their masters, their
mhm.
lords. And, what you're talking about, and I think you're right. It's time to become your own like master. It's time to become your own CEO. And
Well,
people are scrambling to figure out how to do that.
yeah, yeah, no, because that's where we're going. The truth of the matter is, like, we started this when the pandemic hit. People were doing the work from home thing, and I realized at that moment in time, it's like, wait a minute, that the workspace is now completely optional. Um, that means I don't need anything. I can work here and never ever have to set foot outside to go to an office.
Mm,
Like, we're there now.
mm,
Companies are starting to realize this. So it's like if they're just starting to come to that, like, big come to but it's everybody else like, wait a minute. I can literally create my own work environment. I don't have to. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah. Now,
mm,
so now it's like, so for people now, it's like, okay, what the hell do I do?
mm,
Right. And that's the scary moment because it's like, hey, I'm free to be anything I want. Blank slate. Then you get, like, the blank page. It's like, that's you.
mm,
Well, what do I want to do? And people, and so, and then I always tell people, well, what are you interested in doing? Right. Because it's like, if you're interested, like for example, you're doing a screenplay. So I'm assuming you want to film your own stuff at some point down the road.
Or sell it to someone who
Or
has
sell or
more
sell or sell to
power
someone.
than I do. Yeah.
But you it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility for you that you're gonna have to be like, "Hey, listen," get like 4 or 5 really good people together and go like, "Hey, let's build like this really cool movie about a
Hmm.
superhero, and we'll come up with the worst special effects of all time. We'll give it like some really, really funky sound effects,
Yeah, yeah.
and like, do like the old 1960s Batman. I like, just do something really, really over the top, like silly like that, and
Mm,
then put it out there, and then suddenly it's like I made a movie, and that's literally on your resume, which means now you've created a presentation, you've solved all kinds of problems, you've written stuff, you've hired people, you've probably unfortunately had to fire people, and you've done all this stuff in the process of getting your film done. And it's
mm,
like, and you come out of this and be like, I just did that and I'm awesome at it. And then someone
mm,
will go, "Hey, can you make my movie?" And then you'd be like, the business side of you, it's like, "Yes, I
mm.
could. How much?" And they'll be
Yeah.
like, and suddenly you have a gig that you never expected to have. And just because you went out of your way and did something.
I mean, we have to be, to use your word, renaissance. The word means to be reborn, really, to
Mhm,
come to life again.
mhm,
And, you're right. It is possible now for anyone with an iPhone or whatever kind of phone to be a cinematographer, a director. We all kind of have to do that at the same time. I do a lot of writing. I publish traditionally and non-traditionally, and the gatekeepers of these industries has shifted. I mean, it's not like you have to go to LA anymore to become a filmmaker or even an actor.
mhm.
You can be your own actor. Um,
Well, okay, talk about publishing. Traditional publishing is a niche and a much bigger piece of the pie. Like if you look at and it's not a knock, right? Anyone that wants to work for Simon Schuster, Penguin, any of those places, they are still big markets. They still have big, big reach. They still are great platforms. But you also got Kickstarter. You also
yeah.
got right. You also got Amazon. You got Kobo. You got like all these places where you can go. Hi, my name is Christian, and I'm a superhero, and I write these really, really cool books, and they're awesome and made of cheese, and you can please buy them, and you can kind of find your own little like
Mm.
corner of the universe where
Yeah.
you can establish yourself, right? And suddenly you're this larger than life. You could like overnight you can become this big hit. And then maybe Hollywood will come to you and say, "We really like your superhero concept, you know? We'll make movies and or video games and or strange and wonderful merchandise that we want to sell, and we'll pay you to do it." And you'll be like, "Cool."
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, my goal, so for me, my superpower is basically like helping other people discover their superpowers. So I do a lot of life coaching, a lot of master classes. We have the Superpower Dojo. So we have a whole belt system that kind of personal development, basically talking about everything you're saying right now. So
Mhm,
you're really resonating kind of with everything I've been doing. Um, there is, I would say though, to equivocate, there is a advantage of being traditionally published. And if you ask
sure.
anybody who's been through the process, there's pros and cons to each. If you're
Mhm,
a traditionally published author, it basically means a lot of people vouch for what you're doing. Now
mhm.
that doesn't always matter, because some of the best books they never make it through that query stage. Most of the books that really should have been published never made it to an acquisitions editor, I think. And a lot of the ones that have really need to be kind of reconsidered and taken off the shelf. But it also takes about 2.5, 3 years to self-publish a single book. I mean, to traditionally publish a book, and that would be I mean, that's a long time. You got to write it, they got to edit it, they got to promote it. You have a PR team. Whereas you can go on Amazon now and just write it yourself, and the benefit is that you get most of the profit, and it's quick. But then again, the quality of the paper, all of that, hardcover, sleeves, jackets. I mean, so they're two different animals, I think,
Mhm.
and one is kind of morphed into the other, given the absence
Well,
of bookstores
so
nowadays.
so I accidentally got traditionally published. Would you like to hear that story?
Sure.
So I was originally gonna so I, this was 2014. I decided that, I was gonna get back into writing again. I'd been through a major personal crisis, and it took me a couple of years to get my life back together, and when they were back together, it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna write," 'cause I published my very first book of, like, these, like, short little poems way back in 2005, and it's now a print book. I'm proud of it. I learned a lot. I learned how to sell. Like, I learned how to use my big mouth to sell shit, which is great, but, I wanted to do it again. It's like, I'll do another poetry thing. And so I wanted to do a longer poem. So I wrote this story about this, this slave boy who was in this like compound and dragons were in charge of this compound.
Hmm.
And he's up on this tower looking out, wondering what's out there. And I thought, this is a really cool poem. And it's like, well, what happens next?
Hmm.
Right? And then I wrote chapter 2, and he kills his dragon master and escapes into the wilderness. It's like, "Okay, I gotta know what happens next." So I wrote chapter 3, which is his first night alone in the wilderness, which is a very, very, like, profound, like, little moment for him. It's like, "Okay, I gotta keep going." And then 3 became chapter 4, 4 became chapter 5, 5 became chapter 6. I'm like, "Screw what I had in mind. This is what I'm doing." So I wrote it. And then, I went to a comic book shop, and I saw this person I used to work at Kinko's with. She's just this amazing artist. Her name's Florence, and I go, "Well, maybe she'd say yes to that. I don't know." And so I
Hmm.
contacted her and asked her if she'd be willing to draw some pictures and do the cover and stuff, and she said yes. So I had this book I was originally planning just to publish in Smashwords, and that was, like, the whole of my plan.
Hmm.
And so I put it out on Smashwords, and someone I interviewed bought the book. She goes to me, "This is really cool. What are you gonna do with it?" And I just what I told you, and, print some books for, like, conventions, and that was it. And she goes to me, "Well, I just gotta deal with Ingram Spark. I am starting my own publishing company. I'll publish it." And that's how you accidentally get published traditionally,
Man,
right?
that's
You just
that's a beautiful story.
yeah.
And you happened to be in the right place at the right time, and
Mhm.
yet you also got yourself there
Yeah.
with, your story. You're a worldscaper, Josh, and your story crafting. And
Mm.
I tell people that, yes, I've sort of stopped believing in accidents. But you have to, like, there are mechanisms undergirding our society that will help those who take that leap of faith and take that
Mhm.
jump. But it takes a lot of self-confidence and bravery.
Well, I see. I do believe in accidents because you see, there are some great accidents in this world. Chocolate chip cookies was an accident. Someone accidentally put
Yeah,
jackfruit chips in the cookie dough, and the rest is history.
right.
Sticky notes are accidents. I think what it really comes down to is recognizing the opportunities presented to you with what you're doing and seeing,
Mm,
and making a leap and taking a stand and having the confidence to go. Either with just saying, "Here I am," or speaking out against, like, the popular opinion. That also takes a lot of gut stuff, but again,
mm,
putting yourself out there and putting yourself in the position of the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with it. You
mm,
recognize that, um, things are gonna happen if you do stuff, but you gotta be willing to do stuff, and you gotta be willing to stand by the consequences of what the stuff is you do, and
mm,
not every consequence is like a bad thing. Not everything happen is going to be a good thing either. Like, there's good and bad, as you say, to every road you take. But again, I can honestly look at myself. It's like, I have 3 traditionally published books. I have, 2 independent books. Ironically, the second independent book is the one that got nominated for an award. So it's like,
mm.
you keep doing stuff, you keep making things happen, and next thing you
Yeah.
know, for whatever reason, right, you will get noticed somehow, some way. It's just recognizing those things as opportunities that for what they are, and just going with it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I very much
Mm,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just, what I found is it's the hardest thing for people is recognizing, okay, not like, I'm just gotta stay out of my own way and just let whatever this magic is happen.
Mm,
Right? I think the other part that's really hard for people to really get is, it's h you're not there's very little in your control, right? All you can do is put yourself out there and have the confidence or to go, "Here I am." The rest will take care of itself. In the writing game, my books may not be these big sellers. I might only see a handful of things here and there, but everything I'm doing is building up to something else.
Mm.
It's not just a bit of process; it's a whole process, and it just goes.
Who are the authors that you like read and look up to?
Ray Bradbury, because I love his ability to make you imagine a world of possibility. Love that. There's a
Mm.
romantic side to it, but there's a terrifying side to it. The two books that probably shaped me the most from him were both Fahrenheit 451 and the Martian Chronicles. They're both
Mm.
beautiful books, but they're very different books. I love some of his other stuff too, M's for Magic, Dandelion Wine, but the two that really shaped me were Fahrenheit and Martian.
Mm.
I'm an Asimov guy. I love Foundation. I love Foundation. I love some of his short story stuff.
Mm.
Um, older me loves Michael Moorcock. I love Roger Zelazny. These are the people I read. Robert Jordan, Stephen King, right? Um, and those are the people that I'm looking at and going, yeah, I can do these really cool and crazy
Right.
things, right?
Right.
Right.
They're your heroes, you know?
Hmm.
I love that. Yeah, Asimov, Bradbury, they were prescient, you know, they could see the future or they could make the future a reality beyond
Hmm.
themselves. That's what I love about writing and about authors and about people who take that risk, you know, you become immortal. If you're going to be a writer, like you're going to live forever. And I always try to encourage people who maybe have, 15 one-star Amazon reviews, whatever. Maybe your target audience like hasn't even been born yet.
Hmm.
They're not even alive. So don't let this generation define like your self-worth and your value because there are things we can control. You
Hmm.
know, we can control the molecules around us. We can control how we react to something. And so I say don't even read Amazon reviews. Those are for other readers, not for
I
authors.
I I
you
I
know?
I actually I would love 15 one-star reviews that say I suck. I actually would be okay with that because the fact is I made an impression. I'd rather say something I really like this guy or I really hate this guy
Hmm.
because at least that's you've made an impression.
Hmm.
If you make an impression, chances are people are going to talk about it, even if it's like that guy's. I mean, we all want that guy's amazing and wonderful and he's cool, but sometimes what you get is that asshole, right? And that's fine. Again strictly on a business level. It may, I don't care what the talk is. I would rather just be no. That sounds very cynical, but it's not. You look at how our world works. It's the people that polarize it are usually the people that tend to blow up, right? So I'm not really worried about that. What I'm more concerned about is creating the best impression I can. If I can make you feel something, it's good.
Hmm.
Right? I'm not gonna go out of my way necessarily to write something that's deliberately trying to offend you, but I'm hoping I make you think. I'm hoping I make you consider the world in a different light than what you had when you first read my stuff, and that's kind of the goal of what I do.
Hmm. That's amazing. And you know, we read with our hearts. You know, a lot of
Mhm,
us, and I worry about Fahrenheit 451 and the disillusion of the printed page. And what do you think? I mean, do you think books are going to be around in perpetuity, or do you think it's all going to go mobile and website?
I think video games are the future, and
Yeah.
I think that way because video games can do something books cannot. Games are about interaction, and that's an even better step than you look at a game like, I love video games too, so I like an RPG game like, Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy or even Legend of Zelda. Well, you can establish a connection with the character you're playing because
Mm.
you and that character almost have, like, this symbiotic bond. Like, that's how you that point of view is established just because you're the player, and suddenly it gives you a certain agency that even a book can't do. And you can tell incredibly complex stories with that too,
Mm.
right? And then but there's an added layer. To create the story, the player must interact with the world created.
Mm,
And sometimes, and I think that's a incredibly powerful thing. I do think books will always be around in some form or fashion, but I think books and television are steps behind the gaming industry that way. I think that um, television is a one-way deal. Someone can you can watch a show and be entertained by the show and entertained by the characters on the show, but you're not really interacting with that world when you're
mm,
watching a television show. Books, there is a degree of interaction to it, but not to the same extent. You're still kind of watching a program play out.
mm,
But a game, okay, Grand Theft Auto, you can play the game, or you can just actually go about your business. You can start playing the game without actually playing the game, right? Like you can do other things, you can interact and explore the world, which is a
mm,
different way of playing the game than if
mm.
you just follow the story that's presented in front of you. So I and that's something a video game can do that a book. I mean, we have choose your own adventure books, but I don't know about you. They're not the same. Going to page 46 and oh my god, you're dead is not
That's
the
a
same as
blast from the past, Josh. Choose
yeah.
your own adventure. My goodness. Well, that's where we are. We are choosing our own adventure. I'm a huge Call of Duty fan, of course.
Mhm.
But for story arc and character development, you can't really do much better than The Last of Us Part Two, for
Oh, that's a good
instance.
one, yeah, that's a really good one.
Multiple POV. I mean, you're right. You get to empathize, and I think that's the key word.
Mhm.
To step in, you to experience people's world through their eyes. A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. They're all about themselves. But I sort of think there are two kind of people in this world. There's black holes, people who just take,
Mhm.
and then there's like supernovas, people who give and give light. And I think video games help with the latter of those.
Mhm.
They take us out of our own orbit and they throw us into a character that, like, part of The Last of Us Part Two. She's a little girl. It's like a flashback, and she's walking with her dad to this old, I guess it was like an old museum once upon a time. Nature has overtaken it now. But you can experience something. He's giving her advice and wisdom and love and counsel. And um, if you've never had that, like as a little girl, I don't know what it's like to be a little girl.
Mhm.
But there are pieces of my life that were missing that you're right. Video games like satisfying. They let you experience it and enjoy
Mhm.
it. Um, yeah, I just wish we could move from 2D to 3D, where 2D becomes,
Well,
2D belongs in some ways in a museum. Whereas, what
mhm.
if you could experience a movie in 3D? And
Well, and
yeah,
that's why video games are a step ahead of movies and television because they are
mm,
the next dimension. You can still do everything you did with television. Can still do everything you did with a book,
mm,
right? But now the dimension is you're interacting with this world that's being created,
mm,
right? Even like a game like Minecraft, which if you sit there and think about it, is glorified Lego, right?
mm.
Which but you can still like I've seen that
That's so
I've seen the
true. Glorified
right?
Lego. I love
Yeah,
that.
but you can make a Death Star in Minecraft. Like, you can
Mm,
create a world in unto itself in Minecraft, which
mm,
is an incredible, like again, not every game serves the same purpose, but, I mean, the fact is, it's like, you got a game that can build your imagination and make you feel like you've accomplished stuff, and that's what
mm,
Minecraft is. Then
mm,
you got games like Call of Duty where like, "I'm the baddest man on the planet. I now know on a mission how to save the world." Or there's like me, my favorite games right now are the Tales games.
mm,
I love, these JRPG adventure things with really, really weird and wacky skits because I'm a silly human being and I like being silly and having fun too, and right? But everybody's got their thing, and
mm,
I can feel like I've accomplished something playing a game. So a younger person, you can build confidence, like, you can use them to build confidence, teach people how to accomplish things at a young age.
mm.
Older, like, you can become more entertained by them, and again, you can create these worlds that are really interesting and intricate and that people can interact with. So,
Well,
I
even
think
even Assassin's Creed, like, I'm afraid
yeah,
of
absolutely, no,
heights.
Assassin's Creed is an amazing like, it's an
You
ama
know?
I think the first one's okay, the first one and the pirate one are awesome. I'm not crazy
Right.
about any of the other ones, but but as a concept, right? I mean, these are things that as an author, I'm looking at and going, "This is what I'm competing with." Like, can I make something as a writer that's fun? Because I feel like I can't be as interactive, but can the world I create be fun, engaging, and entertaining? And if I can do that, well, at least I'm a step in the direction I want to be. And down the road, I'll probably come up with this weird like multi-platform video game somewhere down the road, and just be like, and maybe I'll draw some of it too. Be like, yes, this is my masterpiece, right? The equivalent of like Pong, like that'll be my like epic like contribution to the world. But that's again, we live in a world of many possibilities, and from a point of view of art, I think gaming is the next step, and I think it's been that way
Mm,
for a while. I just think we're realizing that now.
and we need it now.
Mhm.
I'm afraid of heights, so when you tap into Assassin's Creed and you're standing on the spire of something looking down, it's therapeutic. It's cathartic. Um, so you're right. I mean, you get to interact with the world that someone creates. I really do think the gods of this world are writers, whether
Mhm.
that's in the movie industry. I mean, yes, you need execs, you need cinematographers, you got to have actors. If you're a writer, you're the god of them. You put words in their mouths. I mean, they'll make it come alive with their own talent. But unless you understand story and like, you know, opening, scene, and then, the dramatic crisis and just the bones of what makes stories good. And that never changes. I mean, all the way back to the Greeks. Most of what we do today is just regurgitating Greek
Mhm.
drama. Shakes that's all Shakespeare did.
Oh, yeah.
And so to understand storycraft, wow. I mean, to have a base as a writer gives you such versatility, and that's what I'm hearing you say.
Mhm. Well, I'm working on this is what I'm finishing today when we're done. I have a story, so my 40th birthday is tomorrow, and in light of this really strange time, I thought instead of asking for a present, there's gonna be, like, a handful of people I'm giving a random gift to, and
Hmm,
that's what I'm working on today, is finishing that gift off. I also got an assignment I gotta do too, so because I like getting, like, paid to work, and that's what I'm doing, um yeah, the gift's gonna be done by tomorrow, and that's the hope anyway, and from there, we'll
that's
kinda see
beautiful.
where it all plays off, and, but, the thing is, so right now I'm working on an Alice in Wonderland riff. I took Alice in Wonderland and Greek mythology, and I mashed it together,
Hmm,
right? Alice's Pandora works incredibly well together, and that's what I've been writing for the last little while, so,
hmm. That's fascinating. Keep me posted on that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
so
it's all about the journey, and usually when we chase rabbits down rabbit holes, it's very matrixy, isn't it?
can
And
be. It can
yeah,
be, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the 4th Matrix movie. I'm looking at it, and it's just like it just looks like it's a soft reboot is what that looks like.
really.
Have
I
you seen
haven't even seen a trailer for it, to be honest with you. I've
yeah,
heard rumors.
the trailer's out. The trailer's
Yeah,
actually
is
out.
it? Okay.
I don't normally watch trailers, but I was very curious about where they were gonna go
Mm,
from there,
mm,
and there's so much imagery there, like, he's taking blue pills, lots and lots of blue pills at the start in there, and then
mm,
there's, like, again, Alice in Wonderland's a big part of the first Matrix movie. It's a big part of this Matrix movie as well. You can just like, okay, I'm gonna be
mm.
very curious what this looks like when it comes out, right?
What about the kung fu, man? Because I do Jeet Kune Do, Aikido. I'm all about kung fu. Never thought Keanu Reeves would be doing kung fu until that movie. Um, I don't know if you take martial arts or not.
I don't,
But
but I respect it.
yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna have to watch the trailer. I'm tempted to pull it up right now. Um, but I mean, as far as you can tell, like how are the action sequences and the
They're different. I think he's because he's older. You're not gonna see the he's not gonna fight the same way I like he did when he was it's 2021, not 2003. 2003 he was a much younger, much fitter human being than he is now. And
some more
so
John Wick?
yeah, so yeah, and it's, but he also here's the thing. I mean, Neo was Superman, right? And so, I mean, you just enhance the fact that he basically warps the matrix around him, right? So you can do that. Like,
Mm,
in one sense, to me, after the first movie, the kung fu made no sense
mm,
because he was never in danger until he fought Smith at the very end of the series again.
mm,
Like, he was never really in any danger.
mm.
And so when he was fighting everything else, it was like, it's fun, but it didn't, like, from a story structure point, it made no sense. This
Yeah.
time around, I feel, again, he's an older guy. Like, in real life, he's an older person. So I don't think you're gonna see the same flashy, funky stuff, but then again, he's not the only he's not the only one doing the fight scenes. I get the feeling
Mm,
there is gonna be those kung fu moments, but they're not gonna be so much with Neo, they're gonna be with other people,
mm.
which honestly, I kinda feel should be. I don't know about you, but when Yoda I never liked it when Yoda fought with the lightsaber in Star Wars. I liked it better when he was training because it
Yeah.
made more sense to me. It just from a story structure, just made more sense. Why would he use a lightsaber? It really makes
Mm,
no sense that a guy like Yoda would use a lightsaber, right? To me, it just never
mm.
meh. He's much more interesting when he's the savage, like he's the sage wise man. He's much, much more interesting. He's kind of this like person of wonder and mystery and danger when he doesn't have the lightsaber. And I feel like that's what Neo should be.
Mm.
Wonder, mystery, a power unto himself, and because that's what the one was supposed to be anyway, the anomaly in the system.
Yeah, it was an anomaly. I mean, Bruce Lee always said that, the person with the blade is at a disadvantage because that's
Mm,
where his mind goes.
mhm.
He's not thinking about any, my goodness, if you have a lightsaber, you have two hands on that thing like a katana, like it eliminates so many possibilities. One of the things I loved about the Matrix was the dichotomy between kind of choice, like what you can control and what you can't control. Because you're right, Neo, first of all, he sort of is enlightened. He can see the code. His universe kind of warps around him. He realizes that he can affect that. So
Mhm.
I'm very curious to see, but then you throw in the Oracle, and you talk
That
about prophecy and how things are destined to happen
that
and they don't happen by accidents, but it's the choices that make that destiny possible. That seems like it's not contradictory, but it seems apparent.
well, it's the big actually, see, the first movie, that's the cool thing about the script. If you ever actually seen the script, there's so much talk about choosing your own destiny. I don't like fate, like, dictating what I'm gonna do, and yet here's this oracle and irony,
Right.
right? Right, and my favorite line in that whole movie, actually, my favorite scene is the Oracle when she examines Neo. It's like, "You got the gift, but you're waiting for something." Goes, "What? The next life, maybe, who knows?" And then when you see what happens at the end, you're like, "You guys are," it's like, I just smile. It's like, "Oh, you told me exactly what was gonna
Mm,
happen,
mm,
and you did it in such a smart way that I didn't even pick up on it until
right.
after that happened." It's like, I went like this, like, I applaud you.
Or in poetry, we snap. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
almost the
yeah,
same.
yeah,
It's
yeah. No,
louder.
I just gave a golf clap because it was
Right.
it's literally the most brilliant thing that I think they did in that. But if you look at it, fate and free will are a big part of the first movie because what you're talking about is, okay, Morpheus is going to sacrifice himself for you, right? And that did happen. Morpheus put himself in the line of fire, fighting something he can't beat. He can't beat the agent, and he knows it. But he put himself in that position, and he did the best he could. He still lost, so that exactly happened. And then Neo realized, like, okay, it was a combination of things. It was like, okay, this happened exactly according to plan, and oh shit, it's my fault because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and this is what happened. I got to make it right, and that's what Neo tried to do in the second half of that movie. Is like, I'm gonna make it right, and it's about like the choices he makes, like choosing to fight Smith in that
Mm,
train station,
mm,
right? Standing up for what he thought was right. And that was when Neo actually was heroic because he couldn't beat Smith at that point in time. Really, he could, but he's like, I gotta fight. I gotta do this. I gotta see what happens. I gotta know what's in front of me, even knowing he was probably gonna get his butt kicked. He's like, I don't care. I gotta do this, and that's what made
mm.
Neo brave and heroic. And when he did what he did, it's like, okay, gotta get out of there. Get out of there. Get out of there. Boom. oh crap, right? And then it goes back to that line. You're waiting for the next life. He dies, he gets up, he's the one. It's like, right? But it's really, you see it, like there's that contradiction. Like some things, I kind of feel like with life that we're in some ways we're passengers.
Mm,
More than anything else, we're passengers just going along this ride. And the only real choice we're making is how we react to it. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would get when my dad hit a point in his life where he was really frustrated with God. And he said to me once, like, really, I feel like the only choice I have is whether I believe like in God or not. And everything else really is just this journey I'm part of, and I don't got any say in whatsoever. And older me just kind of recognizes that he's kind of right. I'm kind of just going along. I'm a passenger on the ride. I'm just going with it. I'm just going where I'm being led. But at the same time, it's like, but I could be bitter about it. I could be angry about it. I could be happy about it. I could be sad about it. How I feel in that moment is really up to me, even if I'm
mm,
not in control of this wild journey,
Yeah,
right?
you're right. I mean, time, we're all drifting on in the river of time. It's pulling us on. We can't control time. We can
No.
control our perception of time. Time is the fourth dimension.
Mhm.
And it poses a lot of problems, but also, I love to think about it in terms, Josh, of like is what you were saying about the Matrix. I mean, Neo makes a choice to turn back, even though he doesn't know the outcome. But that choice set into motion something in his enemy, in Smith. He actually helps Smith realize his own potential. Now, in the
Mhm.
end, that has consequences, but I think it is a causality, kind of a reaction based on the decision to change things. And for me, when I talk to people, really trying to bring out the super heroic superpowers that I think everybody is born with. Um, it's all about I mean, more people that I find than not, their problem their problem isn't, what what direction to go. It's basically you can go any direction you want,
Mm.
and you can make the choice. It will have consequences, good and bad and neutral and unpredictable. But that's the beauty of being an autonomous creature. Yes, we're all tethered to time, but my goodness, like even today, us talking will set into motion a ripple that who knows who's watching needs to hear this.
Mhm.
And it will, influence their whole life. What if Ray Bradbury had never sat down to write that stuff? What if he had decided to work another job or,
Mhm.
or Orwell? I was reading 1984 again.
Ah.
And, I mean, how incredible. I mean, the issues he touched on so long ago,
Mm.
are absolutely relevant in every single way in our own society. And so I like to encourage people to step into their own power. The Greek word for power is dunamis, which is where we get the word dynamite. And so I think everybody can explode with power, but it starts with the mind. And I think that's one reason the very first, Matrix, you're right. It spent so much time. Neo was not really in danger from Smith so much as he was from his own internal conflict of ignorance, and choice. He had to actually take that pill. And that's where we all are, I think. What do you think?
So, big thoughts. So here's the big thought. I think for the most part, people I've interviewed, this is my 650th episode. Kind of crazy, huh? So the biggest thing I've noticed with the majority of people I interview is they're waiting for someone to give them permission to do something
Hmm.
somewhere along the way. And it occurred to me a long time ago. It occurred to me to ask myself, it's like, okay, in one sense, who raised me gave me the ability to make my own choices, right? My dad was very encouraging me to go do whatever I was going to do in this life. So I kind of had that permission at a young age to just be me.
Hmm.
And I don't know how to be anything else. And then I realized that many people never had that permission from a parent or like maybe, but we all got these things inside us, I think, but we we feel that we should be doing. And I think for a lot of us, there is that moment of hesitation. It's like, so my favorite quote in life is, it's not our darkness, but our light we fear. It's not that we are weak, it's that we are powerful that frighten us. And it's a big, I'm paraphrasing and butchering it to death, but it's a big long soliloquy. But the thing is, um, in times like these, it's easy to think we're powerless. And the truth is, it's the opposite. I'm going back to Calgary not because I'm not looking forward to it in some ways. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm going to be because I'm going to be doing things a lot of people aren't going to approve of. A lot of people that look at what's happening right now have an opinion of how things should go. I have a different opinion how it's gonna go. And so the decision I've made is, where can I do the most good? And what can I do in this time to help people in this time for as much as I can? And I mean, there's other reasons for me going back there too. But what it really breaks down is where I'm going and what I can do is going to be much more helpful to the people there than where I'm at right now. Where I'm at is easy. I could ride this out and not be in any real. I have a bubble here. Going out there, I'm going to be facing different kinds of opposition from unexpected places. But I've also recognized the fact that in this time, it's about doing what you think is right. And I'm making a choice to do something very, very, very what I feel is right. And accepting the fact too that in spite of everything I think and feel, I could be wrong. But this is a choice I'm making. The rest will work itself out as it works itself out. But at the end of the day, it's like I've given myself that permission to believe it's right because I think I can make that difference. And a lot of people don't have that. And it's like, I'm going to let this happen to me. It's like, well, maybe to some extent you have to let this happen to you, but you don't have to wait for it. You can make a decision to jump into it and do something within the storm.
Yeah, to do something within the storm. I'm gonna have to quote you on that. It's like footnote, Josh, just Joshin. And the word is do. You know, you gotta stop making other people's dreams come true and start focusing on your own dreams. All of us have to do that. And it's not easy. I mean, all of us spend our lives trying to go home. That's all we're ever really trying to do. And home is a scary place for a lot of people. And, you know, kind of wrapping all of this up, I mean, the one common thread that unites the movie industry, the best books, superheroes, going home, choice, all of it is how we deal with trauma, because all of us have trauma, some little, some great, some different. And that's what makes you, Josh, a superhero. You know, you are choosing to, like Neo, turn around and go in the opposite direction where most people would normally say, don't you dare do that. And there you are, and you're doing it. You're going there. So that I needed to hear that. And that was super encouraging to just to think about that.
So my Friday motivation is, I'm a Terry Pratchett guy. And the book that keeps coming back to me right now is Sorcery. It's called Eric as well. And there's this scene that they talk about the prophesied hero going to slay the dragon and everything will go happily ever after. Well, halfway through the story, the dragon wins, beats the chosen hero. And it's up to Eric and Rincewind, who's my least favorite of the Discworld characters. But there was a moment in there where people were doing very, very bad things to each other to appease this dragon. And the reason why they were doing it is they were so afraid of the dragon that they were doing bad things just because they're trying to stay alive against this overwhelming fear. But the only way to overcome fear is to face it, whatever those fears are. And until you're willing to do that, like everything we're doing is just, right now I feel the immediate moment of our time is coming face to face with our fears. So my superhero of choice is Green Lantern. I grew up reading Green Lantern.
I love it.
Green Lantern's about overcoming fear and about making things happen. And if that's
Mm,
what the impression I'm giving you about what I kind of believe and do, it's because I do truly believe that we create our own realities. We all, and for me, it's like I don't have a power ring, but I don't need a power ring. I have my imagination and I can make things happen.
mm,
And I'm going to be making things happen. Some of it, again, in this time, I know some of it is not going to be met with a lot of approval, but I don't care. It's not really about, I'm not going back for approval. I'm going back to make a difference in people's lives that I can make a difference because I can go see some of the places and some of the things that are happening. And that's a
mm.
decision I've made. Now, whether I stay there for a long time or not is another question. But for the moment, it's just looking at it and recognizing it that in this time, in this place, right, we are in the land of dragons and we all have to go kind of find and slay them. And because if we don't, we're always going to be in such a fear.
Mm.
And I'm too old. I'm just too fucking old for that shit. I got more important things to do. So if I gotta go slay the dragon and get back to those more important things, I will. And that's kind of how I see it. Now, again, some people wouldn't look at it the same way, and maybe I sound like completely batshit crazy, but I don't care. I've kind of made my decision, and I'm gonna
You're
go do
right.
it.
No, you're right. Everyone is slaying their own dragons.
Mhm,
That's why kindness is something that, when I
mhm,
culturescape, when I create communities, there are axioms that are really super important. I think for me, kindness is something that I want to kind of spread. It's kindness is contagious. I mean,
mhm,
when you focus on other people and really genuinely want the best for them and recognize, like you're saying, that they are facing their own dragon, it brings out empathy and sympathy. And when people say, I don't know, what my passion is, I don't know what direction to go. Maybe they don't know that, that they have the power to do what you're doing, Josh, and going to a place like that. I
mhm,
always say, look at the word passion. It actually means to suffer. And it's usually in those broken places, like in Doctor Strange's life. You can just see after the car accident, his hands all broken and bent out of shape. That was the first step of the journey that he was destined to become.
mhm,
And but he had to take that step. And you know what? You're not doing it alone. Let me tell you that. Like
mhm,
when you go back, and I tell myself this, like, we your tribe will find you and we will support you. And I don't know how our paths crossed. I'm just doing the math, like thinking about every decision I've ever made, every decision you have ever made brought us directly to this one moment right now
mhm,
where we get to exchange these ideas. I mean, the world
mhm.
had to basically shut down for this to happen the way it's happened.
Absolutely.
And it just makes me grateful for people like you, for superheroes like you, and just for your um like you've got 650 episodes. Am I 650?
You're exactly 650
And your birthday is coming up, and like
tomorrow.
this is a milestone, man. I mean,
Mhm,
I'm just trying to. That's like 2 years of, like, if you interviewed someone every day,
mhm.
like, you have this determination, man. Like, you don't quit. You're, indefatigable. Like, nothing can stop you, dude. Um,
Relentless.
relentless. I
That's
mean,
that's that's the word, relentless. I've seen, again, my own life. I've seen some dark places.
yeah.
And then you're right, you're absolutely right. In those moments you find yourself because it's always there. You can't run, you can't hide. You have to look in the mirror and see exactly who you're going to be. So I made a during the pandemic when it started, I was in Vancouver, British Columbia. I was working a day job. I was traveling 2 trains and a bus, and everything was shutting down. Everything was going absolutely crazy, and it was weird. Every day I'd go out, and I wouldn't be sure which parts of Vancouver would be open. I've never seen anything like that in my life where the world just completely panicked and shut down.
Hmm.
But my come to Jesus moment about this whole pandemic was in the train station coming home from work. Um, Not sure kind of what to do, how to do it. This gentleman was going on the bus. I think he was a homeless guy because and that sounds really, really, really terrible. But the thing is, there's a huge homeless community in BC, and he was going, "Hey, do you got one of these?" And I didn't.
Hmm.
And then he puts his fist, "No problem, man." And he just held his fist out. And for just a moment, I hesitated. And to this day, I remember I still hesitated. I understood why. I was scared. And then I asked myself a really hard question, good, bad, or indifferent. I realized how cruel the pandemic was because there was that moment where then the first time in my life I answered the question, is a hug worth dying for? And it was like, that is
Hmm.
such a cruel moment.
Hmm.
What a cruel thing this time is. And it's when I realized that. But the second thing I realized is this dude is not gonna hurt me. He's just putting a fist spout out just as a thank you because I gave him the time of day in a time like this. And that made me realize who I'm gonna be in this time. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna forget to be kind. I'm not gonna be cruel in this time. I'm not going to enforce, any rules, or I'm not gonna tell anybody how to be in this time. I'm not going to say cooperate or else. I'm not gonna say don't cooperate or else. I'm going to just let people be themselves. The
Hmm.
world is gonna tell you what to they're gonna tell you what to be, and it's like, that's not gonna be me. I'm just gonna be kind. And to
Well,
the
no,
rest.
no dragon can take you out, man. If that's the undergirding mechanism of your life, kindness and
Mhm.
willing to
Oh,
die for a hug, like you, I'd hate to see how big that dragon had to be.
well, put it to you this way, I'm certainly not immortal, but I've already made my peace with my mortality.
Mm,
And if you made your peace with that, there's really not much in this life that can really rattle you.
mm,
And but that's my experience, and that was my answer. It's not everybody's answer, but that's okay. I gotta be comfortable with who I am, and you gotta be comfortable with who you are. And
mm.
whatever you're comfortable with, God bless you. But that's me. You know?
Well, that's something we all need to hear.
Mhm.
Um, is a hug worth dying for?
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder that. Um, like I wonder about. So what you said you're 48. You're going to something like that
I'm 40,
tomorrow.
right? I'm gonna be turning 40, yeah.
Yeah. So you're 39 now. You're turning 40 tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, over the hill, right? I turned 40
I
a couple
guess.
weeks ago,
I
and
just find that I get crazier as I get older. I just care less.
yeah.
And maybe that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. I just
But like, who invented the hill? That's not the paradigm we have to abide by. We can dig that hill up and make it a
I
slope.
I'm jumping out of a plane when I'm 80. I
Yeah,
just don't care. Like, I just
yeah.
literally don't care. So, um, that's I'm gonna be living an adventure my whole life for as long as I live, and that's I'm here once.
Mm,
I'm not gonna I again, regret hurts. Regret truly hurts. Everything
mm,
else, that fades, but regrets are forever, so I don't wanna regret. I have a handful of regrets in my life, just a handful, and I wanna keep that regret pile as low as possible,
mm,
right? I'd rather have 1,000 mistakes because, A, I've done incredibly stupid things in my life. I will still do incredibly stupid things in my life tomorrow, and I'm okay with that. I'll learn, I hope. I hope.
we all have, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the beautiful thing about choice. We're free to not make regrets. I love that. Live a regret-proof life, man. That's what you're doing.
That's what I'm
Going
trying to do,
forward.
yeah.
And that's how you leave a legacy. I mean, that's what this is about, right? I mean, I think about Neo. If you had asked him, or any of the superheroes, right after their moment of crisis and they're enlightened, like, are you gonna what are you gonna be doing at 70? And the people who really don't have an answer for that are the ones who make the biggest difference.
Mhm.
Um, and so, what are you gonna be doing at like 70 and 80 and 90? I mean, like, what's your chief end?
Hit on women half my age, uh, try stuff, still be doing all kinds just you're here to do stuff, man. I mean, that's it, like, you're not here to um Q says best. Q of Star Trek says best. Life is filled of wonders and treasures to satiate the soul, but also things that can make you go like terrors that can like drown your soul. And it's for the bold. And if you're not bold, you can just crawl back into your bed. And he said that when they first introduced the Borg. And it was
Mm,
like, he's right. There are monsters out there, but there are treasures too. And if you're going to put yourself out into the world, if you're going to just put yourself out and make things happen, you're going to run into both monsters and legends, and you're going to run into magic, and you're going to run into all kinds of things. And you got to make the decision of how you're gonna die. That is the way it is. You're not walking out of this life.
Mm.
So the real question is, how are you gonna live this life? Because honest to God, you're not taking anything with you when it's over. So, I mean, you might as well get something out of it. I mean,
Mm.
that's me. I just like, frankly, I
Yeah,
don't give
or give something out of it. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, both, right?
Mm.
So it's like, I mean, this again, the older I get, uh, the less I give a shit because it's like, and I say that in terms of I accept consequences more and more as I get older. Take what you want and pay for it. The rest, you just shrug and you just,
Mm.
you move on and you deal with it. Um, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take what I want. I'm going to make the life I want, and I'm going to do it my way. And I'm not going to compromise on the things I feel aren't worth compromising on. But to the rest, sure, let's just go do it. Let's just make things happen.
Mm. It takes a lot of experience and trial and error for people to come to a moment where they could say that. I think, Josh,
Hmm.
they can look their mortality in the eyes and say, "I'm going to transcend it by my writing." I mean, Ray Bradbury is immortal. We get
Hmm.
his mind, even though it's not, his head is not, you know, in some jar somewhere controlling our thoughts. But wow, he left a legacy. He's with me in the room when I'm reading his work.
Hmm.
I think writers are gods and gods are immortal. And no, physically, we're not going to be alive. But like Orwell, when he wrote that last scene in 1984 with the rats, and he
Hmm.
made his protagonist come face to face with the greatest fear. I mean, rats. And then you see what you're made of, don't you, at the end of the story? Well, we're all homeless. I think we're all trying to find our way home.
Hmm.
And the most important thing, I think, is to be a person who gives more than he gets, or she, or they,
Hmm.
whatever, and to leave a legacy, a community of people who can transcend us. Because when we die, like, hopefully what we spend our life doing is worth transmitting into the next, generation.
People aren't going to remember what you said. People are going to remember what you made them feel. That's it. So anyone that comes on my show, we talk. Actually, I did have a question. Is Doctor Strange the superhero you admire the most? Because you mentioned him the most.
Man, you know what, dude? So many people have asked me that. It changes every single day. I love bits and pieces about all the superheroes. I like Doctor Strange because he was at the kind of top of his career,
Hmm.
and then he had like this inciting incident, and that put him on a pilgrimage to something greater. But it took that. I like that. I also like Iron Man. I mean, Tony Stark. He's not much of a superhero. Um, but the gadgets, and I'm always torn, Josh, between steampunk and cyberpunk. Like I have a steampunk library, a cyberpunk studio, so always pushed by the past and pulled by the future. That's kind of been me. So just about every superhero fits within those two markers.
Mm. Well, it seems to me. So here's what Iron Man and Doctor Strange have in common. They are men searching for their souls. Doctor Strange became a super successful surgeon, but at the cost of who he was. His hands were taken away because, um, if you really sit there and look at it from a fully spiritual journey, right? Um, a fully spiritual journey. It's one of those situations where um, he had to lose what distracted him from what he was supposed to do. Iron Man is this obnoxiously rich guy that did terrible things to amass this fortune. And he came again, and for him, it was his heart. It cost him his heart, and his heart became a thing of iron. And
Hmm.
when you come to that point, when you come and see that point, you recognize the fact that, again, both of those characters are on a journey to refine themselves. Doctor Strange, I think, is it goes the whole way, and with Iron Man, you're going through that journey with him. But
I
that's what
love
they have
that.
in common.
Yeah, and they both kept their scars. I love that
Yes.
last scene of Doctor Strange. I can't remember the name of the movie. Um, And it was basically, he's looking down at his hand, and there's still scars there. And Tony had his scars, and all of us keep our scars. That's how
Mm-hmm.
the light gets in, man, through those cracks, and the light gets out. And I
Mm-hmm.
have my scars, plenty of them. I'm sure you do too, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Always. Yeah.
yeah, but you're right. It's about going forward. And Tony's narrative character development, the narrative arc of his life, moved from a place of introversion and inward kind of aggrandizing to a place of where he's not making these weapons that kill people anymore. I mean, in some sense, in the Avengers movie, there's a nuance of that, but he wants to help people.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's his heartbeat. And he still has to overcome his ego, and all of us have to do that, And Doctor Strange also, I mean, he was an arrogant surgeon. He was at the top of his class. But at the end of it, he submits to the Ancient One, and he becomes just a white belt again, a student.
Yes.
And that curiosity is what I take away from both men. Doctor Strange a little more some days, because he doesn't have to fill the empty space with words.
Yeah.
He's messing with that fourth dimension, time. He can see all the possible outcomes of the choices, and he still chooses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that perspective he has on life. It's something I would like as a historian, to refine and hone and develop, because I'm just a white belt too, man. And there's a lot of things I have to learn. So I always like to try to stay very curious.
And that's an important way to be. It's a very important way. I was just curious. Superheroes were a big thing. I was like, okay, which one for you? Because I know for me, it's Green Lantern. That's always been that is on some level. That's always going to be a bit of who I am. But for you, it's like you mentioned Doctor Strange. It's an interesting. It's an interesting.
I mean,
analogy.
Green Lantern. I'm just thinking visually, because I think in color. I'm thinking Neo would just fit so seamlessly into one of those Green Lantern movies with that green hue they put, on the Matrix. And,
well, I always thought Neo was more like Doctor Strange. Actually, he's like a cooler version of Doctor Strange. He makes the impossible possible. The Green Lantern. Also, I just can't see Neo with the power ring. There's just no it would take away, I think, something of who he is. And Doctor Strange is the same thing. I don't ever want to see too many. The eye Yamamoto is deeper. I think I'm saying that right. The eye is about the most. Is the only thing I basically want to see as a tool. The rest, meh. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. Yeah. He's better. The less you see how he does his magic, the better and more cool Doctor Strange really is. That's just my opinion about him.
So he doesn't share he doesn't wear his soul on his sleeve and just share all of his secrets at once.
Yeah.
Well, and even Neo, I mean, Keanu Reeves, as a man, as a person, adds so much by his daily life to our interpretation of Neo, and just to be a person that just gives. It's hard to get to that stage, I think, because most of us want to take. And, when we take, we become the sinner. But if, we're confident enough to let other people be their own sinner and to populate their world so that they can be the best version of themselves, that's enlightenment, man. That's what Bruce Lee discovered. It's not only about him and his philosophy. It's about allowing us to practice our own Jeet Kune Do philosophies.
So so it's funny because as a freelancer, my ego is actually a healthy thing. Because if someone wants to come to me and go, "Hey, can you do this?" Ego goes, like, "This is what you need," and it's how I make a living. So you
gotta have a thick hide for sure.
Yeah, you gotta have a thick hide, but you also gotta be like one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to it's understanding the nature of your own demons is I think, like, you look at like the archetype. I think that's interesting is the beast from Beauty and the Beast. She chooses the beast over everybody else, and you kind of look at it why, and it's like, well, this is a character with some, like, carries some heavy things inside him, but if he can control those things, right, he's a better person than somebody that doesn't have those things, and not because he's a better person and like he's better. It's just that he has a toolbox that other people don't necessarily have. Having those qualities is actually in and of themselves not necessarily a terrible thing. It's all in how you use them. Ego,
Mm.
right? Using my ego in terms of negotiating my price, in terms of getting things to happen to make things worthwhile to me. That's in itself not a bad thing. But if I go, I am the greatest thing in the universe and nothing can touch it and all that blah, like that's when my ego needs to get needs to get knocked
All
down.
of ours does, because
Yeah.
like we're only 40. Together, you and I make 80, which is like a fifth of the lifespan of a vampire.
Yeah.
So, like, what
Yeah.
does a
Yeah.
40-year-old know about anything? You know,
Well,
like we're all
nothing.
white belts.
But the thing is, like, that's the thing, right? It's understanding. We all care, like you say, we all bring our have scars. It's understanding what the gifts our scars give us and knowing
Mm,
how to use them in a constructive way. If I'm going to be able in a position to help people and give and be kind and all that stuff, I'm also got to have that in me to be like, okay, I also have to have boundaries. I also have to have like a sense of what can give and feel like it
mm,
doesn't take too much for myself.
mm,
And there's a balance to that that's really, 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 really tricky. And I think when we're younger, I do think we gotta go, we either go where we are takers that need to learn how to give, or we give too much and we know have to learn how to stop. One or
mm.
the other. And I think everybody fits into one of those two categories. And it's recognizing what you are and learning how to like if you're a taker, hold your breath, let go. Your turn will always come. If you're someone that just gives all the time, it's like, okay, you have to leave something for yourself. You got to figure out what that is, but you got to leave something for yourself. And I
Yeah, we
think
can be
when,
assertive, right?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
necessarily aggressive.
yeah, you got to be like,
Yeah.
okay, like this is my boundary. No. And if
Mm.
someone tries to, like, no, it's not happening. Right. I don't
Well,
care.
it's
Like,
also love. I mean, you think
yeah,
of
yeah.
Beauty and the Beast. Like, what changed the Beast? Because if the Beast remained the Beast the whole story, that
Mhm.
movie would have never been made. That story would have never worked. Like,
Yeah.
there had to be
No, not at all.
transformation. It was love,
Hmm.
and it was Belle's. I think her name was Belle.
Hmm.
When he heard, the sound of that, and that's what changed. Because you're right, she should have married. What was his name?
Gaston.
Gaston. I
Yeah.
mean, he was. Society said he was perfect. He looked the part. And at the end of all of our stories, our beast our greatest fear has to come true.
Hmm.
And Gaston has to meet, the animal inside us, and we have to decide which one we want to choose. We are Belle, I
Hmm.
think, in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. And now I'm thinking like Beauty and the Beast. That soundtrack is like now in my head, dude, all
Tale
day.
as old as time. Yes.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
no,
that's in the key of E flat. So I'm just seeing like green right now because I
uh,
associate E with green.
yeah. So it's one of those like moments. Like it's just you come to these lessons as you go. Like me, it was just like I realized I made decisions of how I wanted to be treated. I made decisions on how I help, what I do, and being aware of the good and bad that comes with that. And,
Mm,
like I said, we all have to find out what that is for all of us because it's the only way we're going to be healthy. And there's got to be a little give and take. You need some ego. You do need a little bit of this is about me, but also that because in that you can actually then from there help other people and actually be able to help them with whatever it is they are because you know what you can comfortably give. And that's the thing, right? And again, not take everything. Not like there's a balance, I think, that we all have to kind of strive for.
yeah, once we embrace ourselves and
Hmm.
then we can help other people. And that's one reason we started the Superpower Dojo. We have let's see, we have like a yellow belt and an orange belt happening starting on Tuesday, and we have, all the way up from white to black.
Hmm.
And like to help people like you were talking about draw boundaries. But
Hmm.
also it's a mind game to understand your worth and to really work through the layers of identity and trauma. That's really what most superheroes spend 90% of their time doing. Not really
Hmm.
saving people, but figuring out what their purpose is, just like Neo. And
Battles here, battles in the head, battles in the heart. Everything
yeah,
else really doesn't matter.
absolutely. I mean,
You know?
in Aikido, and Bruce Lee said this too. He was more from the Wing Chun, school, not really the Japanese Aikido school, but the body follows the head. The body always follows the mind. So if our mindset is off, then our actions are going to reflect it. So that's one thing in this season of my life, Josh, because I'm asking the same questions you're asking.
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we spend the rest of our time in this earth, as crazy as this earth is? And it's really turned from a place of inwardness to a place of outwardness. I'm not there yet. I've got a long way to go. But the recognition of that and the desire to do that, it actually creates positive change in this world. And to use a word that everyone's so familiar with, it's contagious. You can catch it, you can catch kindness and generosity and help people, become not Doctor Strange, but the ancient one.
Mhm.
That's the real hero, I think, in Doctor Strange's life, is his mentor, his guide. Because had she never been patient with him, my goodness, where he would still be knocking on the door of her dojo.
Mhm.
And
Well, it's recognizing value where you see it, and she saw something in him that he never saw in himself, and again, it's fanning what people believe of you. You can actually become as well, and that's good and bad. So you got to be careful. A little careful of that, but it's powerful. If someone believes in you enough that they're going to give you opportunities and chances, it's a blessing, and you should be grateful for those things.
yeah, I mean, one of
Even
the key decisions I had to make, and this was the hardest one for me, was to not make it about me, not make me the brand, but to make it into an idea, to have
Mhm.
kind of my multiverse revolve around a symbol.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily like Batman is Bruce Wayne. I mean, Bruce Wayne isn't really the hero. It's his transmissibility and becoming a bat sign, and so that's been my struggle. And that's the hardest thing to do, to move from a place of me into a symbol that can resonate with people that are going to be born like 5 years after you and I die. Like, how can we reach them? That's my goal.
Yep. So you're trying to become immortal, like on a personal, on there. If we're going to talk about the personal aspect of this a little bit, there is a little part of you that wants to be immortal, and there's another part of you though. It's like you recognize that a name. Very few people are William Shakespeare. Very few people. Very few people
Yeah,
are.
and Shakespeare wasn't probably even the person we consider to be William Shakespeare. He was
Oh no! At
probably
this point,
an
absolutely not.
Oxford,
Absolutely not.
graduate.
Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, well, let's go down the
But the
list. Like,
words live, the words.
exactly. But that's the point. Like, we know the name. We don't know.
Yeah.
We have an idea a little bit of who Shakespeare was based on the words he wrote, but we don't know his story. We don't know his start and end. We can only guess. So, but the fact that we know that name, that's a rare thing. Even just that we have that much in the annals of time is an incredibly rare thing. You go down the list, right? Victor Hugo, Byron, uh, you know, going to the modern era, Dr. Seuss. I mean, as silly as that is, I mean, he's probably one of the most memorable 20th century people ever is Seuss. Then there's Stephen King, who might, again, at this moment is as big as it gets, but we'll see where that goes in 100 years. Will he still be that guy? Then again, maybe he'll be this indie bookstore. I'll look at someone like, say, Talina Winters, right? I love Talina. She's awesome. But the thing about Talina is, the thing about Talina is, uh, her books are great. And I don't think a lot of people realize how good they are, but maybe one day someone's going to like, holy crap, this is the greatest thing ever. And boom, she becomes the next thing. Like, no one can
Yeah, I mean,
say who's going
to start a brand, it's got to be about you and your name. To start a movement and a culture and an
Mhm,
idea, like, that's how you start a country. That's how you start an
mhm,
empire. Like the Rome wasn't just all the succession of Caesars, Nero, and all of the others, Hadrian, but it was the idea of Rome and the
mhm,
idea of America or whatever it is, and planet Earth. What is the idea of Earth in relation to the other planets around it? Those are the questions we have to start asking. And
mhm.
so when we get out of our own way, I mean, Like our efforts just exponentially increase.
Mhm.
And that's the hardest part, though, getting out of our own way, I think.
That's rule 5 on my list. That's rule 5. Get
Rule
out of your own
5.
way.
I
Rule
love
1,
that.
show up. Rule 2, do your thing. We're gonna do this PG today. Rule 3, don't quit. Rule 4, the rest is rain. Going back to that point of what you can't control. The rain is probably the best example. It takes a very, very, very crazy person to be mad at rain. Rule 5, get out of your own way. Rule 6, no excuses. If it doesn't work
How,
out, you just
how many rules do you have, Josh? I'm going to write these down.
8, 7, be grateful, be charitable. And rule 8 is the last one, the last question I'm going to ask you for this interview. And that is stay uncomfortable.
Hmm.
What at this point in the journey makes you uncomfortable in the with what you're trying to do? What's the thing that scares you?
I'm going to have to think about that because that's a deep question. And
Mhm.
quick answers are often the wrong ones.
Sometimes. I mean, you don't have to answer it to me,
No, I
but
will definitely answer. It's not just one thing.
Mhm.
It's many things. So in order to keep my mind flexible, I've decided to learn to play Bach on the piano.
Okay.
I'm a jazz pianist. And so here in New Orleans, it's usually improv. But to learn to get to tap into the mind of someone who lived in the Renaissance, and to play his toccata and fugue in D minor and to see where he decides to change keys. And that's a struggle. So that's one thing that makes me very uncomfortable. But I think more generally, it's the idea of being comfortable in the uncomfortability. You know, I'm not comfortable with what's happening in this world.
Mhm.
And I'm not comfortable with so many people hurting. But I am learning to exist in a place that is okay with life being unfinished. You know, the mess of our life, that's the masterpiece of it, that it doesn't resolve. There's a coda at the end of the music. We always are returning back to the beginning. And I think the best authors, the best musicians, the best artists, the best writers, the best movie directors, whatever, they get that.
Mhm.
Like, to be okay with an unfinished life. That's a hard one, and that's the one that I'm wrestling with. So, what a great question, Josh. Thank you.
Would you like a suggestion? If you really want to explore the heart of this discomfort?
What I like is suggestion. I have a
Yes.
feeling you're going to give it to me, whether or not I
No,
say yes or
if
no.
you no, actually, you know what? No, 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 no. I won't if you don't want it.
I am more open to suggestion in this season of my life than I have been in any other season of my life. So, give me your suggestion, Josh.
So, this is my impression of you. I think you're true. There's 2 levels to it. Like you mentioned this earlier. The idea of starting a movement to change the world is your goal, right? That's the big reason. Secondary reason is you again, and we talked about this a little bit about immortality, a little bit about immortality. The the honest part about the self part about you is you, much like everybody else in this life, wants to be remembered. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually a very, very human thing. So how that looks like, how that goes, I think is a bit of what makes you uncomfortable because again, you don't control that to some degree. You have this set plan and you go for it and you don't know if it's going to work. I think there's a part of you I think that's looking at that and going, well, how does that work? And shit, this might not work. What am I doing? I could be wrong on that assessment, but there's a part of me that feels at least some of what you're doing. There's that question there. So
Hmm.
my answer to you is so I like I said, I told you I'm going back to Calgary. I had an epiphany in August. So this is just my own personal opinion. We're going in the wrong direction. And if we don't stand up now, we won't we will keep going in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
So the question I asked myself, And this, again, I could be completely wrong. This is the risk I'm taking. I don't know if this is really the right thing to do. And I'm scared that I'm going to be losing a lot of these things I've built over the years. It's like this, what I've been building. I might lose all of it in pursuit of this. This might be the
Mm.
craziest thing I've ever done. But for me, it's not really about memory or whether I'm right or I'm wrong. I'm okay to look foolish. The question I have is, even if it doesn't work out the way I envision it to work out, will I feel better for having tried? And for you, I wouldn't worry about what the result looks like. Instead, I would be looking at, what am I trying to do and what steps am I making every day to make that happen, and not worry about anything else.
Mm.
Because
You know,
if you do that, I think you'll find that you'll make the impact. You'll be closer to making the impact you're looking for.
well, dude, if everything in my life, which brought me to this moment, had ended and was about to be over, I mean, even just getting to exchange ideas with you has made it worth it. And 40 years ago, when you were born, tomorrow, this world was a different place,
Mhm.
and I'm better because of it. Well, all the decisions that were instrumental in your creation and development have just benefited me, and it's going to benefit so many people like who watch this. And I want you to know as you go there to Calgary, um, like we'll go with you. I mean, if you want to come to New Orleans and hang out, you're welcome to do that
Oh,
as well.
totally. I'll find my way there
Um,
eventually.
please do. But like
Yeah.
we're together in this, and that's the beauty of that's what makes us strong, our togetherness. And so, if there's a way I can support you and help you, please let me know. Let
Okay.
us know as superheroes.
Yeah. Will do. Will indeed. I think, good sir, we have an interview here. What do you think?
Say that again.
I think, good sir, we have an interview here. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I've learned a lot, and I'm grateful. So maybe so.
Okay.
I mean, I can't wait to see what happens with you. So you're going there. Like, when are you moving? Like, are you packed?
I'm planning. I'll find out this week. I have a place to stay. Like with a friend temporarily.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
taking care of one last thing, a couple things this week because I helped my dad move his store last week, and I'm just kind of aligning some things up this week, and then sometime the week after, I'm probably gonna go.
yeah,
I'm going to be probably, from what it looks like anyway, probably spending a couple weeks in Canmore. I have a place November 1st. I meet them and kind of go, and then I'm going to do what I set out to do. Which, like I said, is going. Like I said, um, I just woke up and I just realized like there are things I can help and people I can help there that I
mm,
think need to be helped,
mm,
and I'm probably going to break every rule in the book to do it. But this is the time we live in. I'm
yeah,
not sure that, um I'm not sure at this point the rules as we are doing them right now are worth following. That's part of, like, one of the reasons I just woke up and just like, "This is wrong." And so now it's about making that difference the best way I can. Um, and I have an idea how to do that, and we'll see how things play out.
mm,
Um But again, it's keeping true to myself in a time like this, and I think, again, I don't know if it's gonna like, again, there's gonna be a lot of my friends are looking at me, "What are you doing, dude?" And I'll be like, "Well, this is what I feel is the right thing to do." And, I might be wrong, and again, that is the risk we all take, but you gotta make a choice, and sometimes that's really what it's about. I don't know where you are on the concept of God, um, but my own concept is I realized that, um, I realized this a long time ago. All this is way bigger than I understand. I don't understand half of what's going on, even a quarter. Like, I'm a very tiny piece of this. The good
mm,
news is, because 'cause I'm so tiny, if I do royally screw it up, it's not going to be that big a deal in the long run, right?
Bruce Lee was 135, dude, 135 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't have to be big to make a difference.
No. You absolutely can make a difference. But if I screw up, it's not going to. Grand scheme of things, if I screw up,
yeah,
right, it's not going to be that horrendous, in all likelihood, anyway. So be okay with your choices. You're willing to acknowledge yourself. It might be a mistake, and then go do the best you can. And that's all you can do. And I recognize this about myself, about who I am and what I believe in. And in a time like today, it's about where you stand and what you stand for. And you got to be honest. And if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. And that's kind of how I feel.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, it's now or it's
never.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it, man. Let me know. Anytime you need an encouraging word or a sounding board, you call me. I'm there.
I will.
And
I will.
Thank you, Josh, for this conversation. It's made my day.
Yeah. So why don't you tell people what you do and where people can find you, and we'll do the official promo part of the show, and then
no promo. I mean, I'm simple. I'm here for the time being. I'm in the present. So I'm in a Superheroes Unleashed Facebook group. It's a private group. We don't advertise. And I teach life coaching classes to groups of people in our Superpower Dojo.
Very cool.
And so, and if you're interested, I'm sure people can contact you. You can direct them our way. But more than that, it's not really about me. It's about you. And you're a superhero, Josh. And thank you so much for your time today. I'm grateful.
Well, thanks for coming on my show. Ladies and gentlemen, 650 episodes. I am taking tomorrow off. I'm not quite sure my guest is going to be Tuesday, but I'm sure I'll have somebody by to the end of today. To everybody watching and listening, thank you for watching and listening. Support my sponsors. Jenna Green Wiggers, the Well-Dressed Wombat, is coming out November 8th. Paul Oliva's Golem is coming out literally in 2 days. Definitely check a look at there. If you want to support this channel, click the follow button on Twitch, twitch.tv/JustJoshing Podcast. My YouTube channel is Joshua Penteloresco. Hit the subscribe, and enable notifications. My book, Alice Zero, is nominated for the Elgin Award this year. Definitely being buy it on Amazon. Alice 1, I'm going to say, is December 1st. Is coming out then. To everybody watching and listening, I really hope whatever you guys are doing, standing up for whatever it is you believe in, and you are making a difference, and keep on creating and making beautiful things out there. Life is short. Live it. And I'll see you guys Tuesday.